And I always said to my mother, I see the sea and the sea sees me.
Well, it was basically the family's playground because we only lived about 500 yards from this area, the sheds.
I think the fact that the shed has been here for nigh on 100 years and really hasn't changed, but the core of things that remain have just been able to transcend time. The shed has been here for nigh on 100 years and it's perfectly placed on a magnificent piece of foreshore, and it's become, I suppose, for generations sort of the epicentre for a whole host of huckleberry fins and Tom Sawyers and the female equivalent of that, or those. So it's just been an integral part of people's lives over 3 or 4 generations.
In 1917, or thereabouts, Kiefer built the shed. After a few years, not too long, he shifted down to Beaumaris and he sold it to Tetchell.
And then my father used to come down and manage the shed. That was before Tatchell's had it. So more or less, my whole life, young life, was centred around this area, this shed.
All of us were the owners. We actually bought it off the Seabrook. And then we sold on to Mike Meyer. That's Uck and I.
Oh, I've known Hank since he was a boy. He's still going to school when I met Hank. He used to live around the corner from his sister at Black Rock. We've been mates virtually since he left school.
The reaction that we see from people who come down here for the first time is such that they understand that they've come to a special place.
The whole area was very busy and was very popular with holiday makers, and of course it was so crowded on hot afternoons and people came from the city on the train for a big day outing to a holiday destination, which was Hampton Beach and Sandringham Jetty.
This was our playground. When we were children, this was our playground. And I think my happiest days were when we used to make tin canoes. We make tin canoes out of sheet iron, 6x4, and nail wood and get the tar from the local council. Make double paddles and go fishing in our tin canoes. What an adventurous area it was.
There were no real need for holidays because it was, this was a holiday for us. We just loved being here.
It was a magical place. It was full of nets, long lines, hooks, grapples, bits of chain, piles of rope.
The atmosphere and the view and what you see and the cool breezes and all that sort of thing helps make it so successful.
We lived not far from here and we had a bathing box along the beach yonder, and my sister and I used to come down here after school barefoot, wearing our bathers from home, and we would spend the whole summer on the beach. We just belonged here, we didn't really need to go anywhere else, and that's all the men did. They either fished, or they were mending nets, or they were playing cards, or they were drinking, and we were all eating, and it was basically a European lifestyle.
A bit like a billiard saloon, a bit of a hangout. It's not necessarily good for society, you might say.
Well, Monday nights, when the coppers weren't doing much, they used to use this as their meeting house. And they used to go out and literally go out before they came, go out and find people drinking in parks and piss their bottles off them and come out here and drink them themselves.
The tradition of the shed here really is all about the ambience of the place. This is not a sophisticated business. In fact, it's very unsophisticated. It's very simple. It's very much in parallel with the way Unk is, who of course established the shed in more recent times, at least going back maybe to 1970, although the shed has been here since around about the early 1900s.
Both the council and the state government really had policies, particularly in the 50s, of getting rid of every structure on the beach that they could get rid of. And the fact was that was still used as a viable business, hiring boats. And so many people came down here, particularly of a weekend, and hired boats.
With the boat sheds either side is termed by the council as being the boat shed precinct, without knowing exactly what they had in mind in using those two words. I can understand that they see it as being of historical significance.
Maybe the wheel will turn and somewhere we'll see big hire areas again for boats. But that's how I believe this survived. That's how Defina's shed survived, because they used it as fishermen. And so the kayak shop was Batotto's shed, and Big Scott had that, and he was a professional fisherman too.
The dinghy would be full of nets because they would have been netting that night, and they were going to bring them up and put them on the pier, or bring them up and put them, after they were dried, put them on the shed. Well, I can't tell you how long the nets were, but when my father bundled them up, it was the huge round net with corks and sinkers and line. And from a child, it was absolutely enormous. Now, my father wasn't a big man. He was only 5'5", but he was as strong as an ox, and he would just pick this whole thing up, holeless bowless, and put it on his shoulders and walk straight down the pier with it on his shoulders, with his thigh boots turned down. He looked like a pirate. He looked absolutely wonderful. If you could have seen all the boats coming in one day, they'd gone out and got themselves a massive amount of, they netted pilchards. There's a photograph in the Bugle here of the boats full of pilchards that they were that they'd brought in. And then sometimes they would do it on the beach. They would see a whole shoal of whitebait, and they would row out, take the net all the way around it, and then just row back and then pull the net in and bring all the whitebait up to the sand. And there was a sea of moving silver. You've never saw anything like it in your life.
And as a cafe and kiosk, whilst there might be another 30 or 40 of those within a radius of 3 or 4 kilometres, there's no cafe anywhere near like SHQ. I mean, it's a place where you can bring your dogs, and probably a third of the people that come here do come here accompanied by a dog. You can come here in your wetsuit or your wet weather gear, having just got off a boat from the Sandringham Yacht Club. You can wander in as a kayakist who's left their canoe down on the beach, or a windsurfer. As a school, it's the only real windsurfing school in Victoria, and has been that for the last 20 years. So right down through time, since it was built back in the early 1900s, it's been at the foreground of cafes, boat sheds, windsurfing schools over that period.
It's just the atmosphere is great. The people you meet here, the different ones that you meet, and everyone makes you welcome.
Yes, it's just got an atmosphere about it that's just too rare these days.
It was always a meeting place, and it obviously still is today. But there are always people hanging around here, old boaties of all sorts.
So I think it would be not a good idea, it would be inconsistent if the shed became anything other than what it traditionally has been in its ambience. And of course, in that respect, it becomes particularly attractive. People, when they feel the place when they come down here for the first time, understand it's not your typical windsurfing school, it's not your typical kiosk or restaurant or whatever. It's very atypical. It's very special, and I think the reaction that we see from people who come down here for the first time is such that they understand that they've come to a special place.
Because it's such a laid-back sort of a place, happy place to be.
The characters that this shed has attracted over the years, the likes of Unc, Hank, Basil.
This became a sort of a social shed. People used to just come down here to talk and carry on. And they always wanted a beer. So we used to buy a fair bit of beer, and I said, oh bugger, this is costing too much. So I got an 18-gallon keg, put it upstairs, and start manufacturing it.
Yeah, make a bit of home brew one time. In the bait box, that was partially frozen. And the home brew would be made, and then to overcome the cloudiness of the beer, we'd put the beer in the bait box, sunny side up. And when we pull the beer out, the bottom of the bottle would freeze all the brown rubbish on the bottom, and if you pour gently, you got clear beer. And the bottles of wash put upside a special wrap made for them. Definitely 10% of wash.
It's a place people can identify with. You know, when they're kids, they come down to the beach and they might hire a boat or go out in the boat. Sort of like some of the people still come here. We used to have them. They used to come down and help us get the boats out in the morning for the hires, and as a result of that, they get a free boat in the afternoon when there's nothing happening. So it's always sort of been a focal point. Just this area, the fact that it's got a car park, I think that has a lot to do with it. Yeah. Because people can drive down here, they can ride down here in their bikes. The yacht club next door helped, and because we used to have the girl guides next door on the other side of us here.
Just paddle around the stone wall and go down to Black Rock or round to Sandringham, wherever the best looking girls were at the time, take them for rides on our surfboards.
Around here that I met a 16-year-old girl who later became my wife.
I used to bring my children down here, and I'd take them swimming. In fact, I breastfed my babies on the beach down here because I just, the beach was, you didn't need to go anywhere else. It was always the beach. You could always walk to the beach. There was always somewhere to go, and that was the beach.
In those days, there was mussels everywhere. Everywhere there was mussels. I used to get me mussels from around the corner. I was a great believer in Whitey liked the mussels from that area. And occasionally I'd ask in the pub, get a few mussels for them. And I'd pick them up, and Bluey would take them up to the pub. And I'd come home and go. And then in the afternoon I'd go back to poor old Bluey would have no fish, no mussels. I'd eat them right out. Mussel juice all over the pub floor. Those are the days of 6 o'clock closing, the good old days. But mussels were so plentiful. I can honestly say I never sold the fish, I give them away, plus the mussels. I've had a few free drinks on it, but I've never asked for money.
Yeah, Baz has always been fishing. Ever since I've known him, he's been fishing. It's a bit less now, Yep. Basil and his twin Armstrongs.
And we were told how to row the boat, row standing up Neapolitan fashion. And there were set rules we used the boats. If we went out in the boat, I remember the rules my father told me.
This was the boat hire, and Billy Earwicker ran this. Billy Earwicker was a very strident, loud man, and he ran a very tight ship.
Our initial business was the boat hire business, yes, but we didn't. They'd already got rid of some of the stock. They'd sold some of the boats, so we started off with 8 boats, whereas originally they had 12 or more boats. Well, we did boat cartage, and then we got into the mooring game because Uck was a diver, and there's lots of moorings out here in those days. Present is about 25, I think. We had about 50 in those days.
It was a boat hire shed for donkey's years. Well, that's what it built. It was Kiefer's first boat shed. He's a well-known boat hire around here for donkey's years. He built it. That was his original shed, this one. Built it in about 1925.
They were good days. I look upon them as good days. All the bathing boxes were here. Ratepayers owned the bathing boxes. Families go down for tea. 6 o'clock closing. Dad'd get off the train. Dad'd get changed, come down the beach, sit with Mum and the kids. And they'd stay there till sundown.
Well, everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. They all know this shit. They might know the others, but they all know this shit.
I would say no doubt that I'd like to see it remain as it is, to not change the ambience, not tinker with the historical attributes that it possesses, to maintain that constant flow of interesting people, characters, eccentrics, many of them are, that seem to, for whatever reason, and maybe I've touched on some of them, gravitate to this very, very special place.
Well, councillors come and go, and some have vested interests in other things, or they have views which think that everything should be returned to nature and there shouldn't be anything on the beach. And then you get others who think that it should be all nice, all the buildings should be nice, new and tidy, and so you just got to put up with it and wade through it.
I'd like it to stay exactly as it is, but I can recall going to Dunk Island many years ago when there was nothing there, and we sat around having a beer in the evening and saying, oh, we can just imagine this with a Ferris wheel over there and a big multi-unit hotel here and swimming pool there, and this was all done in an ironic sense, how to spoil a beautiful place, and of course it's happened. Well, now, I can envisage this being one day refurbished and they'll ruin it. It should stay like it is.
Because this area means so much to me, I think that they've got to stay. They have to stay. You can't, you can't just say, oh, well, we'll knock this down and put up something new and beautiful. This is beautiful. And I don't believe that change is necessary in this area at all.
Well, I see it as Sandringham's best kept secret.
history of the shed is such, it's so unusual, and given that the shed has its own personality, its own allure, its own identity, that people like myself, really more than anything else, are simply custodians that will be here for a period and will move on. And we'd very much love to think that those who become custodians after us keep the flame burning, maintain the traditions, particularly that of people like Unk, who have been of our generation. And I think it behoves us all to make sure that the baton is passed on.